World Sight Day 2021. Oxfordshire Association for the Blind.
Hi, my name is Kate Laybourne and I work for Oxfordshire County Council's Visually Impairment team.
And my name is Mark Upton and I'm the Chief Executive of Oxfordshire Association for the Blind.
And we're here today just to have a little chat about sort of employment and visual impairment and how things have impacted you.
Yeah.
So Mark, we've obviously known each other quite a long time and I know about you, but would you like to explain sort of a little bit about your visual impairment?
Yeah, so I was born visually impaired. I was diagnosed at quite a young age. So I grew up with my visual impairment. I didn't know anything different. Didn't have anything to compare it to. So I went through education, I went through a lot of those struggles at the time, and a few years ago my sight deteriorated a bit more. So I have a condition called X-linked retinoschisis, so splits in the retina, and unfortunately basically both my retinas detached, so it caused quite a bit more vision loss. And unfortunately quite a few surgeries and quite a bit of time.
What sort of age were you then when that happened?
So it's in my late 20s.
Yeah.
So I grew up kind of knowing that my sight might get worse, but what they were telling me was probably in my 40s, 50s. So I wasn't really expecting it, so it came as quite a shock.
It's a huge shock, hasn't it? So, and whatever you're told by
Really, I lost a lot of
things, it's the reality of that, so yeah.
Yeah, it was quite a shock, and so kind of how I see is quite a sort of patchy, blurry. It's a bit like looking through broken glass, sort of distorted glass. So I see the world in a blurred way, really.
Okay. So you said that this happened to you sort of in your late 20s. So sort of how did that impact you? Obviously there's the emotional impact of that, psychological impact of that and how you deal with that. But there's also the practical change. So you've been used to a certain level of vision and now you've got significantly less. So I know that some of our team have worked with you. How with some of those issues, how have we supported you?
Yeah, so one of the big things as my sight had deteriorated was when I was out and about, whether in a shop or out in public, I found it really hard being confident in my surroundings. So people were coming up from the side. If I couldn't see them out the side of my field of view, people were just appearing. Objects were just appearing from nowhere. So I felt really isolated in that sense, and I'd lost a lot of confidence. I was relatively confident growing up, getting out and about. I'd go all over the place quite happily, and this really not my confidence. And so what I did, I contacted your team and asked for some support with using a long cane. So there's a long white cane, which is a mobility aid, which needed some training. So I had a lot of help there.
Okay. People assume that this is, it's maybe something that you just purchase or you can just go off with, but it's not the case, is it? You do have to be supported and taught to use it so that you're responding.
You do, yeah.
Properly to what you're feeling as the cane goes ahead of you. So definitely
need some support with it, because I think just getting used to the way the cane works, getting used to some certain routes, safe ways. One of the things that your team helped me with was actually looking at some better places to cross the road, and just some practical ways of getting around like that. But actually, just using the cane, understanding the way it works and how to get the most out of it was really important. And the other part was the psychological part.
Yeah.
It was a real barrier. Growing up, I knew I could have a cane. I was presented with a cane, but I didn't take it up. And I felt, actually at this time I really needed it, and I felt actually there's a big psychological barrier because you do stand out. But your team really helped me with that, walked through with me and helped me kind of get used to that. And actually we flipped it on its side and actually felt, although you do stand out, that is a good thing, because when I go into a shop now, the staff instantly know that I might need some support, or that actually if objects are in the way, they move them out of the way. Or they, if I go to a train station, for instance, in the past I'd have to go and seek out help if I needed it, whereas now most people would come to me and they'd offer that support. Do you need assistance, which is really good. And that happens just because I'm using the cane, and the general public are aware, or a bit more aware of me when I take my cane out and about.
Good. So what about your experience of employment? You were obviously employed at that point, continue to be employed, but what's your sort of experience of employment, and how how does that sort of interact with your visual impairment?
Yes, so employment was really hard. Growing up, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to go to university. I found education really hard, so I didn't really know what my options were. I felt after 16 I didn't really have much support to go, to look at my options. So I ended up being presented with an opportunity to work somewhere, and that is actually, somebody helped me out in that sense, and that was really important because I had very little self-esteem at the time, had very little self-worth. I thought that I wouldn't really have a job in the future. I never thought I'd be able to amount to much, and that was really hard because a lot of my peers, a lot of my friends were out getting Saturday jobs, out working in shops and restaurants, earning money, being independent.
It's a huge thing for a young person, isn't it, when you think about it? I think about people that I know who are 16, 17, 18, who, it's important, financially, as well as, like you say, it's that self-worth, it's how that frames you. So
well, constantly for a young age, you're being presented with what do you want to be when you're older, what do you want to be when you're older. Yeah. And when you're visually impaired, you're like, well, I'm not going to be a lorry driver, that's for sure. So you've got, you have got limited options, but one of the problems is, and we always do this, is we look at what we can't do.
Yes.
And actually, when you think about it, you couldn't be a brain surgeon, Kate, no offence, but or a rocket scientist. So when you've got, everybody has limitations in that view, and unfortunately, we do face obviously quite a few barriers by employers, but it doesn't mean we can't do the jobs.
So what you say there are barriers by employers, what support is there available for employers that maybe people want to consider?
Employers have a lot of things available for them as well as employees, and there's a scheme called Access to Work which can help with funding for specialist equipment, for transport to work, or whether somebody.
So do you get transport to work generally?
So I get support with transport to work because obviously I don't drive, so I get support for transport getting to work. And also if I need to drive around or get around within work, I can get support through using taxis and things like that. And also specialist equipment, so whether it's magnification or speech for your computer, or specialist devices that can help, that's all available. And actually that's a really big part of it, because employers think, oh, well, they're going to cost me a lot of money, and I'm going to have to make all these adaptations. But actually, that's support.
But it's there, isn't it? And we know that, according to figures of the RNIB, that, whereas the general population, the employment rate was last year was around 76%, you've got a much lower level of employment for people who have a registered visual impairment. It's around sort of mid-20s. So, it is important that employers realise that they can access these services, and people who with a visual impairment can access those services. Could you, so is there, from sort of what we've said, is there one thing that you would sort of recommend, or one piece of advice you would say for somebody either for retaining work or looking at work, or something you could offer?
Definitely. I think for me it was, I was presented with an opportunity at a young age to take part in a job, and that I think was really important, to take hold of that opportunity and to do my best at it. And I think looking out for opportunities, we don't have necessarily the same opportunities as our peers do, maybe with things like Saturday jobs or evening jobs. We might not be able to do this, so we don't learn some of those basic job skills. Where can we go and learn that? So taking part in things like work experience, job placements, internships, apprenticeships, different job schemes.
Or even leadership roles within things like, organisations, etc. Or, even if that's at whatever level, it's all skill, isn't it? It's an experience.
Yeah, and just gaining that experience, gaining that knowledge. And one of the best pieces of advice somebody ever gave to me when I was employed was to learn as much as you can, take on board as much as you can. It doesn't even matter if it's to do with your role, learn about it, and get involved. If you've got the capability, is to actually learn that. What you can about the role and the job and the organisation, and you'll be indispensable. You will be indispensable to the employer.
It's worked for you, and again, congratulations on being the first visually impaired chief exec for the Association for the Blind.
Thank you. Yeah,
thank you for your
very
time.
much.
Thank you.